Rosa Martinez had seen many things during her 3 years of cleaning the Torres Industries building, but nothing had prepared her for what happened that Tuesday night in October. The sound of expensive leather shoes hitting marble floors echoed through the empty lobby as she pushed her cleaning cart toward the elevators. It was nearly midnight, and the building should have been empty except for security guards and night staff like herself. But tonight was different. Tonight, the new CEO was making his first official visit to the company headquarters, and Rosa could hear voices coming from the executive floor above. She had read about Gabriel Torres in the company newsletter, a 35-year-old billionaire who had bought the struggling tech company 6 months ago. The employees whispered about him in the break rooms, calling him cold and distant, a man who spoke little during meetings and seemed to prefer numbers over people. Rosa continued mopping the marble floors, her worn sneakers squeaking softly against the wet surface. At 42, she had learned to move quietly through spaces where she wasn't meant to be noticed. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun beneath her cleaning company cap, and her uniform, a simple navy blue polo shirt and black pants, marked her as invisible to most people who worked in this gleaming tower of glass and steel. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and Rosa looked up to see several men in expensive suits stepping out. She recognized the company executives from their photos in the lobby: Director Peterson, CFO Williams, and Head of Operations Richardson. Behind them walked a tall, lean man with olive skin and dark hair that looked like he had been running his hands through it. This had to be Gabriel Torres. Rosa quickly moved her cart to the side, making herself small against the wall as the group passed. She had learned long ago that rich men didn't like to be reminded that someone had to clean up after them. But as they walked by, she noticed something odd about the CEO. His breathing seemed labored, and his face had a grayish tint that reminded her of her late husband during his heart problems. The group stopped near the reception desk, their voices carrying clearly in the empty lobby. CEO Torres was trying to speak, but his words came out in broken, stuttered Spanish words that made Rosa's blood run cold. "Me duele el pecho, no puedo respirar bien," he gasped, his hand clutching his chest. Rosa watched in growing alarm as the other executives looked confused and frustrated. Peterson was checking his watch impatiently while Richardson kept asking, "What is he saying? Can anyone understand what he's saying?" Gabriel Torres stumbled slightly, reaching out to steady himself against the marble reception desk. His breathing was becoming more rapid and shallow, and Rosa could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. He continued speaking in Spanish, his voice growing more urgent. "Dolor en el brazo izquierdo, Mario. Por favor ayuda?" The executives exchanged worried glances, but none of them moved to help. They seemed more concerned about the inconvenience than the fact that their new CEO appeared to be having a medical emergency. Peterson pulled out his phone and started dialing, but Rosa could hear him asking for the company lawyer rather than emergency services. Rosa's training as a former medical translator in Mexico kicked in. She recognized the symptoms Gabriel was describing: chest pain, difficulty breathing, left arm pain, dizziness. These were classic signs of a heart attack, and every second counted. She dropped her mop and rushed forward, her cleaning cart forgotten. "Excuse me," she said firmly, pushing past the confused executives. "He's saying his chest hurts and he can't breathe properly. He has pain in his left arm and feels dizzy. We need to call 911 right now." The executives stared at her in shock. Peterson's mouth fell open as he lowered his phone. "What did you just say?" Rosa knelt beside Gabriel, who had now slid down to sit on the floor, his back against the reception desk. His eyes were wide with panic and he was still speaking in rapid Spanish. Rosa took his hand gently and spoke to him in his native language. "Tranquilo, señor Torres. Entiendo lo que está diciendo. Vamos a conseguir ayuda," she said softly. "Calm down, Mr. Torres. I understand what you're saying. We're going to get help." Gabriel's eyes focused on her face, and for the first time since the executives had brought him downstairs, he looked relieved. He squeezed her hand and continued speaking in Spanish, telling her about the tightness in his chest that had been building all evening, how he had tried to ignore it during the meeting, and how scared he was. Rosa turned to the still stunned executives. "Someone call 911 immediately. He's having chest pains that could be a heart attack. And someone needs to get the building security to unlock the front doors so the paramedics can get in quickly." Richardson finally snapped into action, pulling out his phone to call emergency services while Peterson ran toward the security desk. Rosa stayed with Gabriel, continuing to speak to him in Spanish, keeping him calm and gathering information about his symptoms to relay to the paramedics when they arrived. "Tiene algún problema cardíaco anterior?" she asked. "Do you have any previous heart problems?" Gabriel shook his head weakly. No. Pero mi padre, murió de un ataque al corazón? No, but my father died of a heart attack. Rosa felt her own heart sink. Family history made this even more serious. She checked her watch. It had been almost 10 minutes since the symptoms had started becoming severe. She could hear sirens in the distance, growing closer. Los paramédicos vienen en camino, she assured him. The paramedics are on their way. Gabriel looked up at her with gratitude in his dark eyes. Gracias. ¿Cómo te llamas? Thank you. What's your name? Rosa Martinez, she replied simply. When the paramedics burst through the front doors 5 minutes later, Rosa was ready for them. She quickly translated Gabriel's symptoms and medical history, explained the timeline of events, and answered all their questions with the precision of someone who had done this before. The paramedics worked efficiently, and within minutes they had Gabriel stabilized and loaded onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him toward the ambulance, Gabriel reached out and grabbed Rosa's hand one more time. Por favor, ven conmigo al hospital, he said urgently. Please come with me to the hospital. The paramedic looked at Rosa. Are you family? Before Rosa could answer, Gabriel spoke up in heavily accented English. She understands? Please. Rosa looked around at the executives who were still standing in shock near the reception desk. She thought about her daughter Isabella, asleep at home with her neighbor watching over her. She thought about her job, her small apartment, her carefully ordered life that didn't include riding in ambulances with billionaire CEOs. But she also thought about the fear in Gabriel's eyes and the way he had gripped her hand like she was his lifeline. She had been invisible in this building for 3 years, just another face in a uniform that people looked through rather than at. Tonight, for the first time, someone had truly seen her and needed her. Yes, she told the paramedic. I'll come. As the ambulance pulled away from Torres Industries, Rosa Martinez had no idea that her life was about to change forever. All she knew was that a man was in trouble, and she was the only person in that marble lobby who had understood his cries for help. The executives stood watching the ambulance disappear into the night, finally beginning to process what had just happened. The quiet janitor they had barely noticed for 3 years had potentially saved their new CEO's life. And more importantly, she had revealed something that none of them had expected. Gabriel Torres wasn't the cold, distant man they thought he was. He was simply a man who, in his moment of greatest fear and vulnerability, could only express himself in the language of his heart. And Rosa Martinez, a single mother who mopped floors to support her daughter, was the only one who had been listening. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital emergency room buzzed overhead as Rosa sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, still wearing her cleaning uniform. It was 2:30 a.m., and she had been there for over 2 hours while doctors worked on Gabriel Torres. Her supervisor had called 3 times, demanding to know why she had abandoned her shift, but Rosa had explained the situation and promised to make up the missed hours later in the week. Dr. Patricia Coleman emerged from the treatment room, pulling off her latex gloves. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and kind eyes that had seen too many emergencies. Rosa stood up immediately, her heart racing. How is he? Rosa asked. Dr. Coleman looked surprised. Are you family? I was told there was a translator here, but... I'm not family, Rosa said honestly. I work at his company. I was the one who called 911 and came with him because I could understand what he was saying. The doctor's eyebrows raised. You speak Spanish? It's my first language. I was born in Mexico and worked as a medical translator there before I came to the United States. Dr. Coleman's expression changed to one of respect and curiosity. Well, Ms. Martinez. Rosa Martinez. Ms. Martinez, I have to tell you that your quick action tonight likely saved Mr. Torres's life. He wasn't having a heart attack, but he was experiencing a severe panic attack combined with dangerously high blood pressure. The combination could have led to serious complications if he hadn't received treatment quickly. Rosa felt relief wash over her. So he's going to be okay? He's stable now. We've given him medication to bring his blood pressure down and help with the anxiety. But I have to ask, you said you understood what he was saying. The executives who came with him seemed completely lost. Rosa nodded. Mr. Torres was speaking in Spanish, describing his symptoms. Chest pain, difficulty breathing, left arm pain, dizziness. The other men didn't understand him. Dr. Coleman made a note on her clipboard. That's interesting. According to his medical records, he's bilingual, but his primary language is listed as English. Has he always communicated in Spanish at work? I don't know, Rosa admitted. Tonight was the first time I'd ever seen him in person. But when he was scared and in pain, Spanish was what came naturally to him. That's actually quite common, Dr. Coleman explained. During times of extreme stress or medical emergencies, people often revert to their first language, even if they're fluent in others. It's the language of emotion and instinct. The sound of expensive shoes clicking on linoleum announced the arrival of the Torres Industries executives. Peterson, Richardson, and two other men Rosa didn't recognize hurried down the hallway, their faces a mixture of concern and barely concealed panic about potential liability issues. "Doctor, how is Mr. Torres?" Peterson asked, not even glancing at Rosa. Dr. Coleman looked between the executives and Rosa. "He's stable. No heart attack, but he did experience a severe panic attack with dangerous blood pressure spikes. He's asking to speak with the woman who translated for him." Richardson finally noticed Rosa sitting there. "You're still here?" "Mr. Torres asked me to stay," Rosa said simply. Peterson frowned. "I think we can handle things from here. You should probably get back to work." Dr. Coleman's voice cut through the dismissive tone. "Actually, Mr. Torres has been quite insistent about speaking with Ms. Martinez. He's been asking for her specifically since he regained full consciousness." The executives exchanged glances that Rosa didn't like. She could practically see them calculating the potential complications of having a janitor involved in their CEO's medical emergency. "Perhaps we should call his personal physician," Richardson suggested. "And maybe a lawyer." "What he needs right now is rest and minimal stress," Dr. Coleman said firmly. "And he's specifically requested to speak with the person who helped him. Unless there's some reason why that would be a problem." Rosa stood up. "If Mr. Torres wants to see me, I'll go. If not, I'll leave. But I'm not going anywhere just because it makes you uncomfortable." Peterson's face reddened. "Now listen here, you can't just—" "Gentlemen," Dr. Coleman interrupted, "I suggest you lower your voices. This is a hospital, and your CEO is recovering from a medical emergency. Ms. Martinez acted professionally and potentially saved his life tonight. I think the appropriate response is gratitude, not territorial behavior." Before anyone could respond, a nurse approached the group. "Dr. Coleman? Mr. Torres is awake and asking for the lady who speaks Spanish. He seems agitated that she's not here." Dr. Coleman looked at Rosa. "Would you like to see him? You're under no obligation, but it might help his recovery if he can thank you personally." Rosa nodded. "Yes, I'd like to make sure he's okay." As they walked toward Gabriel's room, Rosa could hear the executives murmuring behind them, probably discussing damage control and non-disclosure agreements. She pushed their voices out of her mind and focused on what mattered, checking on someone who had been scared and vulnerable. Gabriel Torres looked smaller in the hospital bed, dressed in a pale blue hospital gown instead of his expensive suit. And 4-drip was attached to his arm, and monitors beeped softly beside him. But his eyes were alert when Rosa entered the room, and his face lit up with relief when he saw her. "Rosa," he said, and she was surprised to hear him use her first name. "Gracias por cuidarte." "Thank you for staying." "Cómo se siente?" she asked. "How are you feeling?" "Mejor gracias a ti." "Better thanks to you." Dr. Coleman watched the exchange with interest. "Mr. Torres, I'm going to step out and give you a few minutes to talk. Your vital signs are stable, but I want you to rest. We'll keep you for observation until morning." After the doctor left, Gabriel looked at Rosa seriously. "I need to apologize for what happened tonight. And I need to thank you properly." Rosa pulled the visitor's chair closer to his bed. "There's nothing to apologize for. You were sick and scared. It's normal to speak in your most comfortable language when you're in distress." Gabriel's eyes widened slightly. "You understand that? Most people think I should always speak English since I live here now." "Language is more than just words," Rosa said gently. "It's how we express our deepest feelings. When my husband was dying, he only spoke Spanish for the last 3 days, even though he had lived in the United States for 15 years. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "I didn't know that anyone at the company spoke Spanish. How long have you worked there?" 3 years. I cleaned the building at night." 3 years, Gabriel repeated thoughtfully. "And no one ever thought to mention that we had a bilingual employee?" Rosa shrugged. "I'm just the janitor. People don't usually ask janitors about their language skills." Gabriel's expression darkened. "That's going to change." Before Rosa could ask what he meant, there was a knock on the door. Peterson poked his head in, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Torres? Sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss some things about tonight's incident. Legal wants to know about confidentiality agreements and—" "Get out," Gabriel said quietly. Peterson blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said get out." Ms. Martinez and I are having a conversation. When we're finished, I'll speak with you. Until then, please wait in the hallway." Peterson's face went through several shades of red before he finally nodded and backed out of the room. Gabriel turned back to Rosa. "I'm sorry about that. They're worried about lawsuits and bad publicity." "I understand," Rosa said. "They don't know me. They're probably worried I'll sell my story to the newspapers or something." "Will you?" Rosa looked at him with genuine surprise. "Of course not. What happened tonight was private. You were scared and sick, and I helped because that's what anyone should do." Gabriel studied her face for a long moment. "You really mean that?" "Yes." "Rosa, can I ask you something personal?" She nodded. "You said you were a medical translator in Mexico. What brought you to the United States? And why are you working as a janitor instead of using your translation skills?" Rosa was quiet for a moment, considering how much to share. Something about Gabriel's genuine curiosity and the vulnerability she had seen in him tonight made her want to be honest. "I came here 8 years ago with my husband and daughter. My husband had family in Texas and we thought there would be more opportunities. I had trouble getting my Mexican credentials recognized here, and my English wasn't good enough then for medical translation. My husband got sick shortly after we arrived, cancer, and the medical bills were enormous. I took the first job I could find that had health insurance." "And after your husband died?" "I had a daughter to support and bills to pay. Night cleaning pays better than day shifts because fewer people want to do it. I've been taking English classes when I can, but between work and raising Isabella, there hasn't been much time." Gabriel was quiet for a long time. Finally he said, "How old is your daughter?" 15. She's a sophomore in high school. Very smart, she wants to be a doctor. She gets that from her mother, I think." Rosa felt her cheeks warm. "She gets it from both of us. Her father was a teacher in Mexico." "Rosa, I want to ask you something, but I want you to feel free to say no." She waited. "I have a condition that you witnessed tonight. When I'm under extreme stress, I sometimes have panic attacks, and during those episodes, I often can only communicate clearly in Spanish. It's been a problem in business situations before. Would you consider working for me as a translator and cultural advisor?" Rosa stared at him. "I don't understand. I'm offering you a job. A real job using your skills and education. You would help me navigate situations where my condition might interfere with communication, and you would also help the company better serve our Spanish-speaking clients and employees." Rosa's mind raced. This was the kind of opportunity she had dreamed about for 8 years. But it seemed too good to be true, too much like a fairy tale. "Mr. Torres, I appreciate the offer, but I think you're still recovering from tonight. Maybe you should think about this when you're feeling better." Gabriel smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. "Rosa, I've been thinking clearly since the moment you took my hand in that lobby and spoke to me in Spanish. You didn't just translate my words. You understood my fear and treated me with dignity when I was at my most vulnerable. That's exactly the kind of person I want working with me." Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. For 3 years she had been invisible in that building. Now, suddenly, someone was not only seeing her but offering her a chance to use her mind instead of just her hands. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. But Rosa, don't think too long. Something tells me we're going to work very well together." As Rosa finally left the hospital at dawn, her uniform rumpled and her mind spinning, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. In the space of one night, she had gone from being an invisible janitor to being personally recruited by a billionaire CEO. But more than that, she had connected with another human being in a moment of genuine need. And for the first time in 8 years, Rosa Martinez felt like someone was truly listening to what she had to say. Rosa barely slept after returning home at sunrise. She sat at her small kitchen table, still wearing her cleaning uniform, drinking strong coffee and trying to process everything that had happened. Her daughter Isabella found her there when she got up for school at 7 a.m. "Mom? Why are you still in your work clothes?" Isabella asked, her dark eyes concerned. At 15, she was tall for her age, with Rosa's same warm brown eyes and her father's quick smile. She had learned to read her mother's moods well over the years. "Something happened at work last night, Mija," Rosa said, using the Spanish endearment that always made Isabella feel loved. "I had to help someone at the hospital." Isabella poured herself a glass of orange juice and sat down across from her mother. "Are you in trouble?" "No, nothing like that. Actually, something good might have happened. But I'm not sure yet." Isabella studied her mother's face. "You look scared and excited at the same time." Rosa laughed despite her exhaustion. "That's exactly how I feel. Do you want to talk about it?" Rosa looked at her daughter mature beyond her 15 years, already taking AP classes and dreaming of medical school. Isabella had been the driving force behind Rosa's determination to build a better life in America. Every late night cleaning office buildings, every time Rosa bit her tongue when people dismissed her, every English class she took after exhausting shifts, it had all been for this smart, ambitious girl who deserved every opportunity. The new CEO of the company where I work had a medical emergency last night, Rosa explained carefully. He was having a panic attack and could only speak Spanish. I was the only one who understood him, so I helped translate for the paramedics and stayed with him at the hospital. Isabella's eyes widened. Mom, that's amazing. You used your real skills. And now he's offered me a job. A real job using my translation background. Isabella jumped up from her chair so fast she nearly knocked over her juice. Mom, that's incredible. What kind of job? Rosa held up her hand. Slow down, Mija. It's not that simple. He offered to make me his translator and cultural advisor. It would mean leaving my cleaning job, working during the day, probably making more money. So what's the problem? Rosa sighed. The problem is that it sounds too good to be true. I've been invisible at that company for 3 years. Now suddenly the CEO wants to hire me for an important position? What if he changes his mind when he feels better? What if the other executives convince him it's a bad idea? What if I'm not good enough? Isabella came around the table and hugged her mother tightly. Mom, you were a medical translator in Mexico. You have a college degree. You speak 3 languages. The only reason you've been cleaning buildings is because people here don't recognize how smart you are. 3 languages? Rosa asked, puzzled. Spanish, English, and Portuguese, remember? You learned it when Dad was studying Brazilian literature. Rosa had forgotten that Isabella knew about the Portuguese. It had been something she had picked up years ago, almost as a hobby, but she had maintained it by reading Brazilian news websites. Maybe you're right, Rosa said slowly. Maybe I should at least hear what he has to say. Isabella grinned. Maybe you should stop being so scared of success. After Isabella left for school, Rosa tried to nap but couldn't stop her mind from racing. Finally, she gave up and decided to call the hospital to check on Gabriel's condition. She was surprised when they put her call through to his room. Rosa? Gabriel's voice sounded much stronger than it had a few hours earlier. I was hoping you would call. I wanted to make sure you were feeling better. Much better, thank you. The doctors are releasing me this afternoon. Rosa, have you thought about what we discussed? Rosa took a deep breath. Yes, but I have questions. I was hoping you would. Are you free this afternoon? I'd like to meet with you properly to discuss the position. Somewhere more comfortable than a hospital room. I usually sleep during the day since I work nights. Of course. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. What time would work for you? Rosa appreciated that he immediately understood her schedule rather than expecting her to accommodate his. I could meet you around 4 p.m. if that works. But Mr. Torres, I should tell you that I don't have interview clothes or anything fancy. Rosa, after last night, I think we can skip the formal interview process. Just come as you are. Do you know the Riverside Cafe on Main Street? It's quiet there in the afternoon. Rosa knew the place, a small, family-owned restaurant where she sometimes took Isabella for birthday dinners. It was the kind of place where people actually talked to each other instead of staring at their phones. I'll be there at 4, she promised. Rosa spent the rest of the morning researching Gabriel Torres online. What she found surprised her. Despite his wealth and business success, there was very little personal information about him. The articles focused on his business acumen and the companies he had bought and improved, but there were almost no photos of him at social events or quotes about his personal life. What did come through was his reputation for being intensely private and somewhat awkward in social situations. Several business journalists mentioned that he preferred written communication to verbal presentations and that he rarely gave interviews. Rosa began to understand that his panic attacks might be part of a larger pattern of anxiety around public interaction. At 3:45 p.m., Rosa walked into the Riverside Cafe wearing her best pair of jeans and a simple blue blouse. She had debated whether to dress up but decided that if Gabriel wanted to work with her, he should know who she really was. Gabriel was already there, sitting in a corner booth and looking much more composed than he had the night before. He was wearing khakis and a simple white button-down shirt, expensive clothes, but not the intimidating suit from the evening before. When he saw Rosa, he stood up and smiled. "Thank you for coming," he said as she slid into the booth across from him. "Thank you for offering to meet somewhere comfortable," Rosa replied. "Hospitals aren't the best place for important conversations." Gabriel laughed. "No, they're not. Rosa, before we talk about the job, I want to explain something about what happened last night. Rosa nodded and waited. I have generalized anxiety disorder, Gabriel said quietly. It's something I've dealt with since I was a teenager. Usually, I manage it well with medication and therapy. But sometimes, especially when I'm under a lot of stress, I have panic attacks. Rosa appreciated his honesty. That must be difficult, especially in business situations. It is. And here's the part that's really embarrassing: when I have severe attacks, I often lose my ability to communicate clearly in English. It's like my brain reverts to Spanish, which is the language I grew up speaking at home with my grandmother. That's not embarrassing, Rosa said firmly. That's normal. When people are in distress, they reach for what feels most comfortable and familiar. Gabriel looked relieved. Most people don't understand that. They see it as a weakness or assume I'm not really fluent in English. How long have you been dealing with this? The anxiety? Since I was 16. The language switching during attacks. It started about 5 years ago after my grandmother died. She was the person who raised me, and Spanish was the language we used to talk about important things. Rosa felt a pang of sympathy. I'm sorry about your grandmother. Thank you. The point is, last night wasn't the first time this has happened in a business context. But it was the first time someone understood what I was saying and treated me with dignity instead of panic or frustration. Rosa was beginning to understand why this job offer was so important to Gabriel. It wasn't just about having a translator, it was about having someone who understood that his condition didn't make him weak or incompetent. Gabriel, can I ask you something? Of course. Why me? I mean, I'm grateful for the opportunity, but you could hire a professional translator with credentials and experience. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee. Rosa, do you know what happened after you left the hospital this morning? She shook her head. I had 3 different executives suggest that we make you sign a non-disclosure agreement. 2 of them wanted to offer you money to keep quiet about my condition. 1 actually suggested we should fire you to prevent any potential problems. Rosa felt anger rise in her chest. That's ridiculous. I know. But it made me realize something important. Those men have worked with me for months, and none of them saw me as a human being last night. They saw a liability, a problem to be managed. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped without thinking about what you might get out of it. Rosa considered this. So this job offer isn't charity? God, no, Gabriel said emphatically. Rosa, I've been researching your background since this morning. You have a degree in linguistics from Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. You worked as a certified medical translator in Mexico City for 6 years. You're fluent in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. You have exactly the qualifications I need. Rosa stared at him. How did you find out about the Portuguese? Gabriel smiled. I had my assistant do a background check. Standard procedure for any potential hire. Rosa, the question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is whether you're interested. Rosa took a deep breath. What exactly would this job involve? Several things. First, you would serve as my translator during business meetings where my anxiety might cause communication problems. Second, you would help me develop better relationships with our Spanish-speaking employees and clients. Third, you would review contracts and documents that involve international business with Latin American companies. What about salary? Gabriel named a figure that made Rosa's eyes widen. It was more than 3 times what she made cleaning buildings with full health insurance and benefits. Gabriel, that's very generous, but... Rosa, I'm not being generous. I'm being practical. You would be saving me from potentially embarrassing situations and helping me tap into business opportunities that I've been missing. You would be earning every penny. Rosa thought about Isabella's college dreams, about the apartment they shared with thin walls and unreliable heating, about the years of night shifts and sore backs and being invisible. When would you want me to start? Gabriel grinned. Is Monday too soon? As they shook hands across the table, Rosa felt like she was stepping into a completely new life. But more than that, she felt like someone was finally seeing her not just as a pair of hands to clean up messes, but as a mind capable of solving problems and building bridges. One more thing, Gabriel said as they prepared to leave. I want you to know that I don't expect you to be available 24/7 or to sacrifice your family life for this job. I know you have a daughter, and I respect that she comes first. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. After 8 years of working around Isabella's schedule and feeling guilty about the time her jobs took away from her daughter, having an employer who understood her priorities felt like a miracle. Thank you, she said simply. No, Rosa. Thank you. I think this is going to be the beginning of a very good partnership. As Rosa walked home, she thought about how quickly life could change. 24 hours ago, she had been mopping floors and counting the hours until she could go home. Now she was a cultural advisor to a billionaire CEO, with the opportunity to use her education and make a real difference. But more than the job itself, she was touched by Gabriel's honesty about his struggles. In a world where successful people were expected to project perfection, he had trusted her with his vulnerability. That trust felt like both an honor and a responsibility. Rosa Martinez was ready for both. Monday morning found Rosa standing outside the gleaming glass doors of Torres Industries, wearing a navy blue blazer and gray slacks that she had bought over the weekend with Isabella's help. She carried a leather portfolio that had been an early anniversary gift from her late husband, the first time she had used it since leaving Mexico. "You look beautiful, Mom," Isabella had said that morning as Rosa adjusted her collar for the 10th time. "And professional. Dad would be so proud." Now, looking up at the 40-story building where she had cleaned bathrooms and emptied trash cans for 3 years, Rosa felt surreal. The same security guard who had barely acknowledged her existence during her night shifts now greeted her warmly. "Ms. Martinez, Mr. Torres is expecting you. You'll want the express elevator to the executive floor." Rosa thanked him and stepped into the elevator she had only seen from the outside during her cleaning rounds. The executive floor was exactly as impressive as she had imagined: floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive artwork, and thick carpeting that muffled footsteps. Gabriel's assistant, a woman in her 30s with short blonde hair and a crisp white shirt, greeted Rosa with a professional smile. "Ms. Martinez? I'm Jennifer Walsh, Mr. Torres's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office." Gabriel's office was enormous, with a conference table, a sitting area with leather chairs, and windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Gabriel stood up from behind his mahogany desk when Rosa entered, looking much more composed than he had in the hospital. "Rosa, welcome to Torres Industries officially this time," he said with a warm smile. "How are you feeling about your first day?" "Nervous," Rosa admitted honestly. "But excited." "Good. Nervous means you care. Come, sit down and let me explain how we're going to work together." They settled into the leather chairs by the window and Gabriel pulled out a folder. "I've scheduled a few meetings for this week where your presence would be helpful. Nothing too overwhelming. I want you to get comfortable with the environment first." Rosa opened her portfolio and took out a notebook. "What kind of meetings?" "Tomorrow we have a conference call with potential partners in Colombia. Thursday, there's a presentation to the board about expanding our services to Spanish-speaking communities. And Friday, I'm meeting with the head of human resources about improving our employee relations with our Latino staff." Rosa nodded, making notes. "Have you had problems with the Latino employees?" Gabriel's expression grew serious. "I think we have, but no one has been honest with me about it. The previous ownership didn't prioritize diversity or inclusion. I suspect there are issues that haven't been addressed." "What makes you think that?" "Several things. We have about 30% Latino employees, but almost all of them are in maintenance, food service, or entry-level positions. Very few have been promoted to management. And when I reviewed employee satisfaction surveys, the response rate from Spanish-speaking employees was much lower than average." Rosa understood immediately. They probably don't trust that their feedback will be taken seriously, especially if the surveys were only in English. "Exactly. That's why I need someone who can help me understand not just the language barriers, but the cultural ones." Over the next hour, Gabriel explained his vision for making Torres Industries a truly inclusive workplace. He wanted to offer more services to Spanish-speaking clients, create mentorship programs for Latino employees, and ensure that company communications were accessible to everyone. "This isn't just about doing the right thing," Gabriel explained. "Though that's important. It's also good business. We're missing opportunities because we're not connecting with a significant portion of our potential market and workforce." Rosa was impressed by his thoughtfulness. "Gabriel, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Where did you grow up? Your Spanish is perfect, but you seem to understand American business culture very well too." Gabriel smiled. "I grew up in East LA with my grandmother. My parents died in a car accident when I was 8 and my grandmother took me in. She had immigrated from Mexico as a young woman and never fully learned English. So at home we spoke Spanish. At school and in the business world I learned to navigate in English. That must have been difficult living between two worlds." "It was. And sometimes I felt like I didn't fully belong in either one. Too Mexican for some spaces, too American for others. I think that's part of why my anxiety developed. I was always worried about saying the wrong thing in the wrong language at the wrong time." Rosa nodded with understanding. Isabella struggles with that sometimes. She's fully American, but she also wants to honor her Mexican heritage. It's a balancing act. How is Isabella handling your career change? She's excited for me but also worried about the changes. She's used to having me around in the evenings to help with homework and make dinner. Now I'll be working normal business hours. Gabriel frowned. Rosa, I want to be clear about something. Your family comes first. If Isabella needs you for something important, you tell me and we'll work around it. I don't want this job to make your life more difficult. Rosa felt a rush of gratitude. Thank you. That means a lot. Their conversation was interrupted by Jennifer's voice over the intercom. Mr. Torres? The department heads are here for the 10 a.m. meeting. Gabriel looked at Rosa. This is perfect timing. I was going to introduce you to the senior staff this week anyway. Are you ready to jump in? Rosa took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. The conference room filled with 8 men and 2 women, all dressed in expensive suits and carrying tablets or notebooks. Rosa recognized some of them from the night of Gabriel's panic attack, including Peterson and Richardson, who looked uncomfortable when they saw her. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Rosa Martinez, our new Director of Cultural Affairs and Translation Services, Gabriel announced. Rosa noticed the surprised glances and barely concealed skepticism from several people. She kept her expression professional and confident. Rosa will be working closely with me on several initiatives, Gabriel continued. She'll be helping us better serve our Spanish-speaking clients and employees, and she'll be providing translation services for international business opportunities. Peterson cleared his throat. Gabriel, I thought we were going to discuss this position more thoroughly before making any announcements. Gabriel's voice remained calm, but Rosa could hear steel underneath. I don't recall needing approval for my hiring decisions, Jim. Rosa is highly qualified for this position. Of course, Richardson interjected quickly. We're just surprised by the speed of the decision. Rosa decided to speak up. I understand your concerns. This is an unusual situation. If you have questions about my qualifications or experience, I'm happy to address them. The head of marketing, a woman named Diana Foster, leaned forward. What's your background in corporate communications? I have a degree in linguistics and 6 years of experience as a medical translator in Mexico, Rosa replied confidently. I'm fluent in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. I've also been observing this company's operations for 3 years from a unique perspective. What perspective is that? Foster asked. Rosa smiled. The perspective of someone who was invisible. I cleaned this building for 3 years. I heard conversations, observed interactions, and noticed patterns that people in management positions might miss. The room was completely quiet. Rosa continued. For example, did you know that the Latino maintenance staff have been asking for better safety training in Spanish for over a year? Or that several Spanish-speaking clients have complained that your customer service representatives can't help them effectively? Gabriel looked impressed. How do you know about the client complaints? I clean the customer service offices. I've seen the complaint forms that get filed under language barrier issues. They pile up, but no one seemed to be addressing them. Foster exchanged glances with the head of customer service. We weren't aware those complaints were piling up. That's exactly the kind of issue Rosa will help us identify and solve, Gabriel said. She'll be my eyes and ears for problems we've been missing. Over the next hour, Rosa answered questions about her experience and outlined her initial observations about areas where the company could improve its service to Spanish-speaking stakeholders. She was surprised by how confident she felt these were problems she had been thinking about for years, and finally someone was asking for her solutions. When the meeting ended, several of the executives approached Rosa individually to continue the conversation. Diana Foster was particularly interested in Rosa's ideas for reaching Spanish-speaking customers. I have to admit I was skeptical at first, Foster said quietly. But you clearly understand both the challenges and the opportunities we're facing. As the conference room emptied, Gabriel and Rosa were left alone. How do you feel? Gabriel asked. Terrified and exhilarated, Rosa admitted. I kept waiting for someone to figure out that I don't belong here. Rosa, you just demonstrated more insight into this company's problems than most of these people have shown in months of meetings. You absolutely belong here. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. It's just hard to believe that my opinion actually matters to people. Gabriel's expression grew serious. Rosa, I want you to understand something. I didn't hire you because I felt sorry for you or because I owed you something for helping me that night. I hired you because you're exactly what this company needs. Thank you for saying that. I'm not just saying it. I'm counting on it. As Rosa settled into her new office, a real office with a window and a door that closed, she thought about how dramatically her life had changed in just 1 week. But more than the external changes, she was beginning to feel different inside. For the first time in years, she felt like her mind was being challenged and her opinions were valued. She thought about Isabella, who would come home from school to find her mother working a job that required her education and intelligence instead of just her willingness to work hard. She thought about the Spanish-speaking employees who might finally have someone in management who understood their concerns. And she thought about Gabriel, who had trusted her not just with his business challenges but with his personal vulnerabilities. Rosa Martinez was ready to prove that she belonged in this new world, not just as the woman who had helped during a crisis, but as a professional who could solve problems and build bridges. For the first time in 8 years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 3 weeks into her new position, Rosa had settled into a routine that felt both challenging and rewarding. Her days were filled with translating documents, sitting in on meetings, and working on Gabriel's initiative to make Torres Industries more inclusive. She had also begun conducting interviews with Spanish-speaking employees to better understand their experiences and concerns. What she hadn't expected was how much time she would spend simply talking with Gabriel. Their working relationship had evolved into something that felt more like a partnership, with Gabriel seeking her input on decisions that went beyond translation and cultural issues. "Rosa, do you have a few minutes?" Gabriel asked, appearing in her office doorway on a Wednesday afternoon. "I wanted to run something by you." Rosa looked up from the employee survey responses she had been reviewing. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Gabriel sat down in the chair across from her desk, something he had taken to doing several times a day. Rosa had noticed that he seemed more relaxed in her office than anywhere else in the building, including his own. "I got a call from a reporter this morning," Gabriel said. "She wants to do a feature story about Torres Industries' diversity initiatives. Specifically, she wants to interview both of us about your hiring and the changes we're implementing." Rosa felt her stomach drop. "A reporter? What kind of story?" "A positive one, I think. She's from Latino Business Weekly, and she's heard about the programs we're developing. She seems genuinely interested in highlighting companies that are making real changes." Rosa set down her pen and looked at Gabriel carefully. "How do you feel about that? You've always been private about your personal life." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Rosa, working with you these past few weeks has made me realize something important." "What's that?" "I've been hiding parts of myself for so long that I almost forgot they existed. My anxiety, my bilingual background, my connection to Latino culture, I treated all of that like it was something to be ashamed of instead of something that could be valuable." Rosa understood immediately. "And now? Now I think maybe it's time to stop hiding. If I'm asking our Latino employees to trust me with their concerns, maybe I need to be honest about who I am." Rosa leaned back in her chair, considering. "Gabriel, you don't owe anyone your personal story. You have a right to privacy." "I know. But Rosa, do you remember what you said to me in the hospital? About language being how we express our deepest feelings?" She nodded. "You've helped me realize that I've been living my whole life trying to separate my professional self from my personal self. But they're not separate. The anxiety that makes me switch to Spanish isn't a weakness, it's part of who I am. And the cultural understanding I gained from growing up with my grandmother isn't irrelevant to business, it's actually an asset." Rosa smiled. "So you want to do the interview?" "I want to do it with you. I think our story, how we met, how we're working together, what we're trying to accomplish could inspire other companies to make similar changes." Rosa felt a flutter of nervousness. "I've never been interviewed by a reporter before." "Neither have I, really. We can figure it out together." There was something in Gabriel's voice when he said, "together," that made Rosa look at him more closely. Over the past 3 weeks, she had noticed small changes in how he interacted with her. He smiled more often, asked about Isabella regularly, and seemed to seek out opportunities to spend time in her office even when there wasn't a specific business reason. Rosa had been trying not to read too much into it. Gabriel was her boss, and she couldn't afford to misinterpret professional kindness as something more personal. But sometimes she caught him looking at her in a way that made her heart race. "Okay," Rosa said finally. "Let's do the interview. But I want to prepare thoroughly. If we're going to represent the company and the Latino community, we need to do it right." Gabriel's face lit up. "Thank you, Rosa. I really think this could make a difference. When does she want to meet with us?" "Friday afternoon, if that works for you." Rosa nodded, then remembered something. "Gabriel, can I ask you a favor?" "Anything." Isabella has a school presentation next Tuesday about career opportunities in business. Would you consider coming to speak to her class? She's been so excited about my new job, and she's been asking questions about what you do as a CEO. Gabriel looked surprised and pleased. You want me to speak to high school students? Only if you're comfortable with it. Isabella's teacher is always looking for professionals to talk to the kids about different career paths. Most of the students are from working-class families, and they don't often get to meet people in executive positions. I'd be honored, Gabriel said immediately. What should I talk about? Just be yourself. Talk about your path to success, the challenges you've faced, what you've learned. These kids need to see that success is possible even if you don't start with advantages. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. Rosa, can I tell you something? Of course. I haven't talked to high school students since I was in high school myself. I'm a little nervous. Rosa laughed. You run a multi-million-dollar company, Gabriel. I think you can handle a room full of teenagers. Multi-million-dollar companies don't ask unexpected questions or judge you for being awkward. Gabriel, you're not awkward. You're thoughtful. There's a difference. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You really believe that? I do. Rosa, I need to tell you something else. Rosa's heart started beating faster. There was something in Gabriel's tone that sounded more personal than professional. What is it? Gabriel seemed to struggle with his words for a moment. These past few weeks working with you have been some of the best weeks I've had in years. I've enjoyed working here too, Rosa said carefully. No, I don't mean just the work. Rosa, I look forward to seeing you every morning. I find excuses to come to your office because I like talking to you. I think about our conversations long after they're over. Rosa felt her breath catch. Gabriel? I know this is complicated, he continued quickly. I know I'm your boss and that makes this difficult. But I also know that I haven't felt this comfortable with another person in years. You see me not just the CEO version of me but the actual me. The anxious, bilingual, sometimes awkward me. And you don't seem to mind any of it. Rosa looked at him carefully. I don't mind any of it because those things are part of what makes you who you are. But Gabriel, you're right that this is complicated. I know. And I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position or make you feel like your job depends on how you respond to this. Rosa took a deep breath. Can I be honest with you? Gabriel nodded. I've been trying very hard not to develop feelings for you because I was afraid of exactly this situation. But the truth is I like you too. Not just as my boss but as a person. You're kind and intelligent and thoughtful. And yes, I see you, all of you, and I like what I see. Gabriel's face broke into a smile that transformed his entire appearance. Really? Really? But we need to be careful about how we handle this. Absolutely. I don't want anything to interfere with your career or make things awkward for you at work. Rosa considered this. What if we take things slowly? Keep our professional relationship professional, but maybe explore the personal side outside of work. I'd like that, Gabriel said softly. Rosa, would you have dinner with me this weekend? Somewhere away from the office, where we can just be Gabriel and Rosa instead of CEO and cultural advisor. Rosa felt a warmth spread through her chest. I'd like that too. As Gabriel left her office, Rosa sat back in her chair and tried to process what had just happened. In the span of 3 weeks she had gone from being an invisible janitor to being a valued employee to being, what? The beginning of something that felt like it could be very important. She thought about Isabella, who had been watching her mother's transformation with excitement and pride. She thought about the interview on Friday, where she and Gabriel would tell their story to the world. And she thought about dinner this weekend, where they would explore the possibility of writing a new story together. Rosa Martinez had spent 8 years feeling invisible and overlooked. Now suddenly she felt seen and valued in ways she had never imagined possible. The scared, vulnerable man who had collapsed in the lobby 3 weeks ago had become someone who made her feel like the most interesting person in any room. For the first time since her husband's death, Rosa was beginning to believe that love might be possible again. And for the first time in years, Gabriel Torres was discovering that vulnerability could be a strength rather than a weakness. They were both about to learn that the best partnerships in business and in life were built on the foundation of truly understanding each other. Saturday evening found Rosa standing in front of her bedroom mirror, trying on her third outfit. Isabella sat on the bed, offering commentary on each choice. The blue dress is too formal, Isabella said, shaking her head. This isn't a business meeting, Mom. It's a date. Rosa looked at her daughter in the mirror's reflection. It's dinner? I'm not sure it's officially a date. Isabella rolled her eyes with teenage wisdom. Mom, when your boss asks you to dinner, somewhere away from the office where you can just be Gabriel and Rosa, that's definitely a date. Rosa sat down next to her daughter, suddenly feeling nervous. Mija, what if this is a mistake? What if it makes things weird at work? Isabella took her mother's hands. Mom, do you like him? Yes. Does he treat you with respect? Yes. Does he make you happy? Rosa thought about how Gabriel's face lit up when she walked into a room, how he asked thoughtful questions about her opinions, how he had never once made her feel like her background was something to be ashamed of. Yes, he does. Then stop overthinking it, Isabella said firmly. You deserve to be happy. Dad would want you to be happy. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. Isabella rarely mentioned her father directly, but when she did, it was always with this kind of mature wisdom that reminded Rosa how much her daughter had grown up since losing her dad. When did you get so smart? Rosa asked. I learned from the best, Isabella replied, hugging her mother. Now put on the green dress. It makes your eyes look beautiful. An hour later, Rosa sat across from Gabriel at a small Italian restaurant in a part of town neither of them frequented. He had chosen well, it was intimate without being overly romantic, busy enough to provide privacy but quiet enough for conversation. You look beautiful, Gabriel said as they settled into their booth. Rosa felt herself blush. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. Gabriel was wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater instead of his usual business attire. The casual clothes made him look younger and more relaxed. It feels strange being out of the office together, Gabriel admitted. Good strange but strange. I know what you mean. All week I've been thinking of you as my boss first and Gabriel second. Tonight I'm trying to reverse that. Gabriel smiled. How's it working so far? Pretty well. Although I have to admit I'm nervous. About what? Rosa considered how much to share. Gabriel, I haven't been on a date since my husband died. I'm not sure I remember how to do this. Gabriel reached across the table and touched her hand gently. Rosa, there are no rules here. Let's just talk and get to know each other outside of work. Rosa felt some of her tension ease. Okay. What do you want to know? Everything, Gabriel said simply. Tell me about your life before Torres Industries. Tell me about your husband, your daughter, what brought you to the United States. Rosa took a sip of wine and began to talk. She told Gabriel about meeting Carlos at university in Mexico City, where she was studying linguistics and he was pursuing his teaching degree. She described their courtship, long conversations about literature and social justice, shared dreams of making a difference in the world. Carlos was the most optimistic person I've ever known, Rosa said. He believed that education could solve almost any problem. When we decided to come to the United States, it was because he thought he could have more impact here, reaching students who needed to believe that their dreams were possible. What happened when you got here? Gabriel asked gently. Rosa's expression grew sad. Reality happened. Carlos's teaching credentials weren't recognized. My translation certification wasn't valid here. We both spoke good English but not perfect English, and that mattered more than we expected. She described the years of struggle, Carlos working construction while trying to get certified to teach, Rosa taking whatever translation work she could find while caring for baby Isabella. The constant worry about money, about immigration status, about whether they had made the right choice. And then Carlos got sick, Rosa continued. Cancer. Aggressive. We had insurance through his construction job, but it didn't cover everything. The treatments, the medications, the time off work, it destroyed us financially. Gabriel listened without interrupting, his hands still covering hers on the table. The worst part wasn't the money, Rosa said quietly. The worst part was watching this man who believed so strongly in the future slowly realize that he wasn't going to be part of it. In his last weeks, he made me promise that I would make sure Isabella got the education he had dreamed of giving her. That must have been incredibly hard, Gabriel said. It was. But it also gave me purpose. Every night shift, every time someone treated me like I was invisible, every moment when I wanted to give up, I thought about that promise. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. Rosa, can I tell you something? She nodded. What you've accomplished, raising Isabella alone while building a life here, working those jobs while taking classes to improve your English, that's not just impressive. It's heroic. Rosa felt tears threaten. I don't feel heroic. Most of the time I just felt tired. But you kept going. And now look, Isabella is thriving, you're using your education and skills, you're making a real difference at the company. Carlos would be so proud. Rosa wiped her eyes with her napkin. I hope so. Now tell me about you. I've shared my story, I want to hear yours. Gabriel took a deep breath. My story is different from yours, but it has some similar themes. My parents died when I was 8, and I went to live with my grandmother in East LA. He told Rosa about his grandmother, Elena Torres, who had immigrated from Guadalajara as a young woman and worked as a seamstress for 40 years. She had raised 3 children on her own after her husband died, and then taken in Gabriel when tragedy struck again. Abuela Elena spoke very little English, Gabriel explained. She understood it better than she could speak it, but at home, everything was in Spanish. She taught me to read using Mexican newspapers and to do math by helping her balance her sewing budget. She sounds wonderful, Rosa said. She was. She was also fierce about education. She worked extra hours to pay for tutoring to help me with English. She made sure I understood that school was my ticket to a better life. Gabriel described his struggle to navigate between 2 worlds: the Spanish-speaking world of his grandmother's house, where he was loved and understood, and the English-speaking world of school and business, where he learned to succeed but never felt completely comfortable. I started having anxiety attacks in high school, Gabriel admitted. The pressure to be perfect in English, to never let my accent show, to prove that I belonged in advanced classes, it was overwhelming. Is that when the language switching started? Rosa asked. No, that came later. In high school and college I just pushed through the anxiety. I thought I could control it if I worked hard enough. Gabriel explained how he had built his first company in his 20s, driven by a combination of ambition and the need to prove himself. Success had come quickly, but so had the pressure to maintain it. The language switching started about 5 years ago, Gabriel continued. I was in a board meeting, presenting a deal that would make or break the company. Suddenly, I couldn't remember the English word for opportunity. I kept saying, opportunidad, and getting frustrated with myself. The other board members thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Rosa squeezed his hand. That must have been terrifying. It was. I realized that all those years of pushing down my anxiety and my bilingual identity had created this weird psychological split. Under stress, my brain would revert to Spanish because that was the language of safety and comfort. Have you gotten help for it? Gabriel nodded. Therapy, medication, stress management techniques. It's much better now than it was 5 years ago. But Rosa, meeting you has helped more than anything else. How so? Gabriel looked directly into her eyes. Because you're the first person who has made me feel like being bilingual is an asset rather than a problem. You've helped me realize that I don't have to choose between being Gabriel the successful businessman and Gabriel the grandson who learned about life from his Mexican grandmother. I can be both. Rosa felt her heart swell. You should be both. Those parts of you aren't contradictory, they're complementary. That's exactly what I mean, Gabriel said softly. You see connections where I saw conflicts. They talked until the restaurant began closing around them, sharing stories about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Rosa learned that Gabriel painted in his spare time abstract pieces that he had never shown anyone. Gabriel learned that Rosa wrote poetry in Spanish, verses about memory and hope that she kept in a notebook beside her bed. As Gabriel walked Rosa to her car, she felt like she was floating. The nervous energy from earlier had been replaced by a warm contentment that she hadn't experienced in years. Rosa, Gabriel said as they reached her car, I want you to know that tonight has been one of the best evenings I've had in years. For me too, Rosa replied honestly. Gabriel stepped closer and Rosa could see the question in his eyes. She answered by rising on her toes to meet him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, a question asked and answered softly. When they broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. Is this really happening? He asked. I think it is, Rosa whispered. As Rosa drove home, she thought about the conversation she would have with Isabella, about the interview they would give on Friday, about the future that suddenly seemed full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. For 8 years, Rosa had lived her life in survival mode, focused entirely on providing for her daughter and honoring her husband's memory. Tonight, for the first time, she had allowed herself to think about what she wanted for herself. And what she wanted, she realized, was sitting across from her in that restaurant, listening to her stories with complete attention, making her feel like the most interesting person in the world. Rosa Martinez was finally ready to stop just surviving and start truly living again. Monday morning brought a new energy to Torres Industries, though Rosa wasn't sure if it was just her imagination or if everyone could somehow sense that something had shifted over the weekend. She arrived at the office 30 minutes early, wanting to settle into her routine before seeing Gabriel. Good morning, Rosa, Jennifer Walsh greeted her with a knowing smile. Mr. Torres is already in his office. He asked me to let him know when you arrived. Rosa felt her cheeks warm slightly. Thank you, Jennifer. As Rosa settled at her desk, she tried to focus on the employee survey responses she needed to review before the weekly department meeting. But her concentration was broken by the memory of Saturday night's dinner and the gentle kiss goodnight that had left her feeling like a teenager again. A soft knock on her door made her look up. Gabriel stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing a smile that made her heart skip. "Good morning," he said, stepping into her office and closing the door behind him. "I brought you coffee from that place on 5th Street that you mentioned liking." "Thank you," Rosa said, accepting the cup gratefully. That was thoughtful. Gabriel sat down in the chair across from her desk, the same chair where they had had their conversation on Wednesday, but everything felt different now. "How are you feeling about Friday's interview?" Gabriel asked, though his eyes suggested he was asking about more than just professional matters. "Nervous but ready," Rosa replied. "I spent yesterday afternoon preparing talking points about the diversity initiatives." "Rosa, about Saturday night?" "Yes." Gabriel leaned forward slightly. "I want to make sure you're comfortable with how we handle this at work. I don't want anyone to think your position here has anything to do with our personal relationship." Rosa had been thinking about the same thing. "I agree. At work we're colleagues. Professional, respectful, focused on the business." "And after work?" Rosa smiled. "After work, we're Gabriel and Rosa, figuring out what this is between us." Gabriel's expression relaxed. "I can live with that arrangement." Their conversation was interrupted by Jennifer's voice over the intercom. "Mr. Torres? The department heads are gathering for the weekly meeting." Gabriel stood up, immediately shifting into professional mode. "Are you ready for this, Ms. Martinez?" "Ready, Mr. Torres," Rosa replied with a slight smile. The weekly department meeting had become one of Rosa's favorite parts of her job. It was where she could share insights from her employee interviews and suggest concrete improvements to company policies. Over the past month, she had established herself as someone who brought valuable perspectives to the table. "Rosa, what did you learn from last week's interviews?" Gabriel asked as the meeting began. Rosa opened her folder and referred to her notes. "I spoke with 8 employees from different departments. The main themes were consistent with previous weeks. People appreciate the company's recent efforts to be more inclusive, but they want to see more Latino employees in management positions." Peterson, who had been skeptical of Rosa's role from the beginning, leaned back in his chair. "That's all well and good, but we can't just promote people because of their ethnicity. We have to consider qualifications." Rosa had expected this response. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Peterson. But what I'm hearing is that there are qualified Latino employees who feel like they've been overlooked for advancement opportunities. For example, Maria Santos in accounting has been with the company for 6 years and has consistently excellent performance reviews, but she's never been considered for the senior accountant position." Diana Foster, the head of marketing, looked interested. "What does Maria think is holding her back?" "She feels like she's not taken seriously in meetings because of her accent, and she's never been included in the informal networking that seems to lead to promotions, the after-work drinks and golf outings where business relationships are built." Gabriel made a note. "That's exactly the kind of barrier we need to address. Diana, can you work with Rosa to develop some strategies for more inclusive networking opportunities?" "Absolutely," Foster replied. "Rosa, I'd like to schedule some time with you this week to discuss ideas." Richardson, the head of operations, had been listening thoughtfully. "Rosa, are you hearing similar concerns from other departments?" "Yes, but each department has slightly different issues. In customer service, the Spanish-speaking representatives feel like they're only valued for their language skills but aren't considered for advancement into other areas. In maintenance, several employees have mentioned that safety training materials aren't always translated accurately, which creates real hazards." Gabriel frowned. "The safety training issue needs to be addressed immediately. Richardson, can you work with Rosa to audit all our safety materials and make sure the translations are accurate and complete?" "Of course," Richardson said, then turned to Rosa. "Would you be available to review our current materials this week?" "Definitely," Rosa replied. "I'd also like to suggest that we involve some of the maintenance staff in the review process. They're the ones using these materials every day. They would know better than anyone what's not working." Peterson looked skeptical again. "Are you suggesting that maintenance workers should be involved in policy development?" Rosa met his gaze steadily. "I'm suggesting that the people who are most affected by policies should have input into those policies. That's not radical, that's just good management." Gabriel nodded approvingly. "Rosa's right. We need to get better at listening to all our employees, not just the ones in management positions. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, with Rosa providing insights and suggestions that were increasingly well received by most of the department heads. She noticed that Gabriel was careful to treat her exactly the same as he treated everyone else: professional, respectful, but not showing any favoritism. After the meeting, as people filed out of the conference room, Diana Foster approached Rosa. "I have to say, I was skeptical when Gabriel first announced your position," Foster admitted. "But you've really opened my eyes to issues I wasn't aware of. I'd like to pick your brain about some marketing strategies for reaching Spanish-speaking customers." "I'd be happy to help," Rosa replied. Peterson lingered behind as well, though his expression was less friendly. "Rosa, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Rosa glanced at Gabriel, who was gathering his papers but clearly listening. "Of course." Peterson waited until the room was empty except for the three of them. "I want to be direct with you. There are rumors starting to circulate about you and Gabriel." Rosa felt her stomach drop, but she kept her expression neutral. "What kind of rumors?" "People are wondering how a janitor gets promoted to a director-level position so quickly. Some are suggesting that there might be personal factors involved." Gabriel's voice was dangerously quiet. "Jim, I think you need to be very careful about what you're implying." Peterson held up his hands. "I'm not implying anything. I'm just telling you what people are saying. And I think it would be best for everyone if Rosa's qualifications were more clearly documented." Rosa felt anger rise in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Mr. Peterson, my qualifications are well documented. I have a degree in linguistics, 6 years of professional translation experience, and I speak 3 languages fluently. What additional documentation would you like to see? I'm just suggesting that we should have formal performance reviews and clear metrics for success in your role." Gabriel stepped forward. "Jim, Rosa has been here for a month and has already identified multiple issues that we had been completely unaware of. She's improved our employee satisfaction ratings and helped us develop new business opportunities. What metrics would you like beyond results?" Peterson looked uncomfortable. "I'm just trying to protect the company from potential HR issues. The only HR issue I see here is someone questioning a qualified employee's credentials based on gossip," Gabriel said firmly. "Rosa earned her position through her skills and expertise. Anyone who has a problem with that can bring their concerns to me directly." After Peterson left, Rosa sank into a chair, feeling shaken. "I'm sorry about that," Gabriel said gently. "Are people really talking?" Rosa asked. Gabriel sat down beside her. "I don't know and I don't care. Rosa, you've proven yourself here every single day. Don't let Peterson's insecurities make you doubt that. But what if he's right? What if people think I only got this job because of what happened that night in the lobby?" Gabriel turned to face her fully. "Rosa, look at me. You got this job because you're brilliant, qualified, and exactly what this company needed. The fact that we've developed feelings for each other doesn't change that. If anything, it proves that we work well together." Rosa took a deep breath. "I just don't want anyone to think I'm taking advantage of the situation." "You're not. And we're going to make sure everyone knows that by continuing to do excellent work and maintaining professional boundaries here at the office." Rosa nodded, feeling somewhat better. "You're right. I just need to focus on the job and prove myself through results." "You've already been doing that," Gabriel assured her. "And speaking of results, I have some good news. The board approved your proposal for the mentorship program." Rosa's face lit up. "Really? They're going to fund it?" "Full funding for a pilot program with 20 employees. You'll be able to pair Latino employees with senior staff members for career development. It's exactly what you proposed." Rosa felt tears of joy prick her eyes. This mentorship program had been her biggest initiative, something she had worked on for weeks. Having it approved felt like a major validation of her ideas. "Gabriel, this is amazing. Thank you for supporting it." "I didn't do anything except present your excellent proposal to the board. This success is entirely yours, Rosa." The rest of the week passed smoothly, with Rosa throwing herself into her work with renewed energy. She finalized the details for the mentorship program, completed the safety material audit with Richardson, and prepared for Friday's interview with Latino Business Weekly. On Friday afternoon, journalist Carmen Rodriguez arrived at Torres Industries with a photographer in tow. She was a professional woman in her 40s with an easy smile and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Thank you both for agreeing to this interview," Carmen said as they settled in Gabriel's office. "I have to say, your story has generated a lot of interest in the Latino business community." "We're happy to share it," Gabriel replied. Rosa and I both believe that diversity and inclusion aren't just good for business, they're essential for success in today's market. Carmen turned to Rosa. Rosa, tell me about your background and how you came to work at Torres Industries. Rosa had practiced this answer, but she still felt nervous as she began to speak. She explained her education in Mexico, her husband's death, and her years working as a janitor while raising Isabella. What was it like being essentially invisible in a building where you now hold an executive position? Carmen asked. Rosa considered the question carefully. It was difficult, but it was also educational. I learned things about this company's culture and operations that I never would have known from a management perspective. I saw how decisions made in boardrooms affected real people doing essential work. And Gabriel, what made you recognize Rosa's potential when others had overlooked it? Gabriel glanced at Rosa before answering. Rosa demonstrated something that you can't teach: the ability to see someone in crisis and respond with both competence and compassion. When I was having a medical emergency and couldn't communicate clearly in English, Rosa didn't just translate my words. She understood what I needed and made sure I got help. Carmen made notes as they talked. I understand that you've implemented several new diversity initiatives since Rosa joined the company. Can you tell me about those? For the next hour, Rosa and Gabriel described the mentorship program, the improved safety training, the Spanish language customer service options, and the employee feedback systems they had developed. What kind of resistance have you encountered? Carmen asked. Rosa and Gabriel exchanged glances. Rosa decided to be honest. Some people have questioned whether my promotion was based on merit or on personal factors, Rosa said diplomatically. But I think results speak for themselves. We've improved employee satisfaction, identified new business opportunities, and created programs that benefit everyone. Carmen nodded knowingly. That's unfortunately common when Latino professionals advance quickly. How do you handle that kind of skepticism? By doing excellent work and staying focused on the mission, Rosa replied. I know my qualifications and my value. I don't need to prove myself to people who are determined not to see my contributions. Gabriel added, from a leadership perspective, I make sure that Rosa's achievements are recognized and that everyone understands her qualifications and expertise. I don't tolerate discrimination or unfounded speculation about my hiring decisions. After the interview concluded and the photographer had taken several photos, Carmen shook hands with both of them. This has been wonderful, she said. Your story is going to inspire a lot of people. When can we expect to see the article? It should be published in next month's issue, Carmen replied. I'll make sure you both get advance copies. That evening, Rosa and Gabriel had dinner at the same Italian restaurant where they had shared their first official date. This time, Rosa felt more relaxed and confident. How do you think the interview went? Rosa asked as they shared a bottle of wine. I think it went perfectly, Gabriel replied. You were articulate, professional, and inspiring. People are going to read that article and realize what I realized that first night, that you're exactly the kind of leader our community needs more of. Rosa smiled. I have to admit, I'm proud of what we've accomplished in just a month. We make a good team, Gabriel said, reaching across the table to take her hand. We do, Rosa agreed. Both professionally and personally. Gabriel lifted his wine glass. To partnerships that work on every level. Rosa clinked her glass against his. To understanding each other completely. As they left the restaurant, Rosa reflected on how much her life had changed since that night in October when she had rushed to help a man in distress. She had gone from being invisible to being valued, from surviving to thriving, from being alone to being part of something beautiful and meaningful. Peterson's comments earlier in the week had stung, but they had also reminded Rosa of something important: she didn't need anyone else's validation to know her worth. She had proven herself through her work, her ideas, and her results. And Gabriel had proven himself too, not just as a successful businessman, but as someone who saw value in people that others overlooked, who understood that strength could come from vulnerability, and who believed that the best partnerships were built on mutual respect and understanding. Rosa Martinez was no longer the invisible janitor mopping floors in a building where no one knew her name. She was a professional making a real difference in people's lives, a woman falling in love with someone who truly saw her, and a mother showing her daughter that dreams could come true with hard work and the courage to believe in yourself. The scared, lonely woman who had worked night shifts for 3 years was still part of who she was. But now she was also Rosa Martinez, Director of Cultural Affairs, partner to Gabriel Torres, and someone who was finally fully visible. 2 months after the Latino Business Weekly article was published, Rosa's life had settled into a rhythm that felt both exciting and comfortable. The article had generated significant positive attention for Torres Industries, leading to new partnerships with Latino-owned businesses and improved community relations. More importantly for Rosa, it had established her credibility within the company and the broader business community. Her mentorship program was exceeding all expectations, with the first group of participants already showing improved job satisfaction and clearer career advancement paths. 3 of the program participants had been promoted to supervisory roles, including Maria Santos, who was now the senior accountant Rosa had known she could become. "Mom, you're humming again," Isabella observed one morning as Rosa prepared breakfast. At 16, Isabella had grown even more perceptive and was clearly enjoying watching her mother's transformation. "Am I?" Rosa asked, though she knew she had been doing it more often lately. "You've been humming every morning for weeks. And you smile more. And you actually look forward to going to work instead of just accepting it." Rosa sat down across from her daughter with her coffee. "Are you okay with all the changes, Mija? I know my schedule is different now and Gabriel has been around more." Isabella rolled her eyes affectionately. "Mom, I love seeing you happy. And Gabriel is great, he actually listens when I talk about school and college plans. Plus, he's been helping me with my AP Spanish literature essays." This was true. Gabriel had become a regular presence in their lives over the past 2 months, joining them for dinner at least twice a week and always showing genuine interest in Isabella's education and goals. Rosa had been touched by how naturally he had accepted the package deal of dating a single mother. "Speaking of college plans," Rosa said carefully, "I got a call from the guidance counselor yesterday. She wants to meet with us about scholarship opportunities." Isabella's eyes lit up. "Really? What kind of scholarships?" "Several kinds, apparently. Academic merit scholarships, first-generation college student programs, and—" Rosa paused, still hardly believing it herself. "There's a full scholarship opportunity at the state university for students whose parents work in executive positions at major corporations." Isabella stared at her mother. "Mom, that's you. You work in an executive position at a major corporation." Rosa still sometimes forgot that this was her reality now. "It's just one opportunity among many. We'll explore all the options." "But Mom, this means I could go to university without you having to worry about the cost. You've sacrificed so much for my education already." Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. Everything she had done for the past 8 years, every night shift, every moment of exhaustion, every time she had bitten her tongue when people dismissed her had been leading to this moment when Isabella's dreams could become reality. "We'll see, Mija. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." That afternoon, Rosa was reviewing applications for the second round of the mentorship program when Gabriel appeared in her office doorway with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Do you have a few minutes?" he asked. "There's something I'd like to discuss with you." "Of course," Rosa said, setting aside her paperwork. "What's on your mind?" Gabriel closed the door behind him and sat down, but instead of his usual relaxed posture, he seemed nervous. "Rosa, we need to talk about something important." Rosa felt a flutter of anxiety. "Is everything okay? Is this about work?" "Not exactly about work, no." Gabriel took a deep breath. "Rosa, these past few months with you have been the happiest of my life." Rosa smiled, feeling some of her tension ease. "They've been wonderful for me too." "You've changed everything for me," Gabriel continued. "Not just at work, though you've made me a better leader. But personally, you've helped me understand that I don't have to choose between different parts of myself. I can be successful and vulnerable, professional and emotional, American and Latino." "Gabriel, you're making me nervous," Rosa said gently. "What are you trying to say?" Gabriel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Rosa's heart stopped. "I'm trying to say that I love you, Rosa Martinez. I love your intelligence, your compassion, your strength, your beautiful daughter, and the way you make me feel like the best version of myself." Gabriel slid off his chair and onto one knee beside Rosa's desk. "I'm trying to say that I want to spend the rest of my life understanding you and being understood by you." Rosa stared at the ring box in Gabriel's hands, her mind racing. This was happening. This was actually happening. "Rosa," Gabriel said softly, "will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but not ostentatious diamond ring, elegant and classic, exactly what Rosa would have chosen for herself if she had ever allowed herself to dream of this moment. Rosa looked at Gabriel's face, seeing the vulnerability there that she had first witnessed that night in the hospital lobby. This successful, wealthy man was kneeling in her office, offering her his heart with the same courage it had taken for him to speak Spanish during his panic attack. "Gabriel," she whispered. "You don't have to answer right now," Gabriel said quickly. I know this is sudden, and I know there are practical considerations with Isabella and your career and— Yes, Rosa interrupted. Gabriel blinked. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Rosa said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I love you too. Yes, I want to build a life with you. Gabriel's face broke into the most beautiful smile Rosa had ever seen. He slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood up and pulled her into his arms. Really? He asked, holding her tightly. Really, Rosa confirmed, laughing through her tears. Though I have to say, proposing in my office is very you mixing professional and personal in the most romantic way possible. Gabriel laughed. I couldn't wait until tonight. I've been carrying that ring around for 2 weeks, looking for the perfect moment, and then I realized that any moment with you is perfect. They held each other for several minutes, both crying and laughing, until a knock on Rosa's door interrupted them. Come in, Rosa called, not moving out of Gabriel's arms. Jennifer Walsh peeked her head in, then her eyes widened as she saw Rosa's tear-stained face and the ring on her finger. Oh my goodness, Jennifer breathed. Did I interrupt a proposal? You interrupted the aftermath of a successful proposal, Gabriel said with a grin. Jennifer clapped her hands together. Congratulations. This is so wonderful. Jennifer, Gabriel said, could you please clear my schedule for the rest of the afternoon? Rosa and I have some celebrating to do. And some talking, Rosa added. We need to discuss how to handle this professionally. Already thinking like a CEO's wife, Gabriel teased. The word wife sent a thrill through Rosa that she hadn't expected. Wife. She was going to be someone's wife again. But more than that, she was going to be Gabriel's wife partner, equal, the person he turned to in moments of crisis and joy. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, studying her expression. I'm thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago, Rosa said. I'm thinking about Isabella's college opportunities and the programs we're building at work and the article next month that's going to feature our engagement. Gabriel looked concerned. Are you having second thoughts? Is this all too much too fast? Rosa stood on her toes and kissed him softly. I'm not having second thoughts. I'm just amazed by how much life can change when you're brave enough to help someone who needs it. You saved me that night, Gabriel said seriously. In more ways than you know. You saved me too, Rosa replied. You saw me when I felt invisible. You valued my mind when I thought I was only good for manual labor. You gave me back my sense of worth and purpose. We saved each other, Gabriel said. And now we get to build something beautiful together. Rosa thought about Isabella's excitement when she heard the news, about the wedding they would plan, about the family they were creating. She thought about the scared, lonely woman who had worked night shifts and worried constantly about the future. That woman was still part of her, but she was no longer defined by fear and survival. Rosa Martinez was now defined by love and possibility and the courage to reach for dreams she had thought were beyond her reach. When do you want to get married? Rosa asked. Tomorrow? Gabriel suggested hopefully. Rosa laughed. I think Isabella might have something to say about that. She's been planning my hypothetical wedding since she was 12. Then we'll plan the wedding that Isabella dreams of for the mother who deserves everything beautiful in the world. As they left the office together that afternoon, Rosa's hand in Gabriel's, she felt like she was walking into a future that exceeded every dream she had ever dared to have. The invisible janitor had become visible, valued, and deeply loved. But more than that, she had learned that the best love stories weren't about being rescued or transformed by someone else. They were about two people seeing each other clearly, understanding each other completely, and choosing to build something better together than either could create alone. Rosa Martinez and Gabriel Torres were going to have that kind of love story. And it was just beginning. The engagement announcement in Latino Business Weekly generated even more attention than Rosa had expected. The article featured a photo of her and Gabriel at her desk, with Rosa's engagement ring clearly visible, alongside quotes about their partnership both professionally and personally. Power couple builds bridge between cultures, read the headline, and Rosa had to admit she was getting used to being called powerful instead of invisible. The response from the Torres Industries employees was overwhelmingly positive. Diana Foster had organized an impromptu celebration in the break room, and even Richardson had offered his congratulations with genuine warmth. The only person who seemed less than thrilled was Peterson. But Gabriel had made it clear that personal opinions about executive decisions weren't up for debate. I have news, Isabella announced one evening as Rosa and Gabriel prepared dinner together in Rosa's kitchen. This domestic routine had developed naturally over the past few months, with Gabriel spending most evenings at their apartment. What kind of news? Rosa asked, looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. Isabella held up an official-looking envelope. I got the scholarship. The full academic scholarship to the state university. Rosa dropped her knife and rushed to hug her daughter. Mija, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Gabriel beamed as he watched them celebrate. Isabella, this is amazing. Your hard work has paid off. Mom, this means you don't have to worry about college costs at all, Isabella said, tears in her eyes. You can focus on your new life with Gabriel without feeling guilty about money. Rosa felt overwhelmed by emotion. For 8 years, Isabella's education had been her primary financial concern. Now, suddenly, that burden was lifted just as she was beginning this new chapter of her life. We need to celebrate, Gabriel said. Dinner out? Anywhere you want to go. Isabella grinned. Actually, I have a request. Can we go to that fancy steakhouse where all the business people eat? I want to see Mom being treated like the important person she is. Rosa laughed. I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of fancy. You are, Gabriel and Isabella said simultaneously, making them all laugh. 2 hours later, Rosa found herself being seated at one of the best tables in the city's most exclusive restaurant. The maitre d' had recognized Gabriel immediately and made a point of addressing Rosa as Ms. Martinez, with the kind of respect she was still getting used to. You know what's funny? Rosa said as they waited for their appetizers. 6 months ago, I would have felt completely out of place here. Tonight, I feel like I belong. You do belong here, Gabriel said firmly. You belong anywhere you want to be. Isabella raised her water glass. I want to make a toast. To Mom, who taught me that hard work and determination can change your life. To Gabriel, who saw what everyone else missed and gave Mom the chance she deserved. And to new beginnings for all of us. They clinked glasses and Rosa felt a deep sense of contentment. Her daughter was secure in her future, her career was flourishing, and she was engaged to a man who loved and respected every part of who she was. Speaking of new beginnings, Gabriel said, I have something I want to discuss with both of you. Rosa and Isabella waited expectantly. Rosa, I know you love your apartment, and I don't want to pressure you to change anything that makes you comfortable. But I'd like to talk about living arrangements after we get married. Rosa had been wondering about this. Gabriel owned a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood, while she and Isabella had their small but cozy apartment that had been home for 5 years. What did you have in mind? Rosa asked. I was thinking we could look for a new place together. Something that belongs to all three of us, not just me or just you. A fresh start for our new family. Isabella's eyes lit up. Really? We get to help choose. Of course, Gabriel said. Isabella, you're part of this family. Any decisions we make should work for all of us. Rosa felt her heart swell. Many men might have expected her to simply move into their existing life. Gabriel was proposing that they build a new life together from scratch. I love that idea, Rosa said. As long as it's not too extravagant. I want Isabella to remember that her values matter more than her address. Absolutely, Gabriel agreed. I'm thinking something comfortable and welcoming with a good school district and space for everyone to have privacy when they need it. Isabella grinned. And a big kitchen? Mom loves to cook and I want to learn. Definitely a big kitchen, Gabriel promised. Over the next few weeks, Rosa found herself living a life she had never imagined possible. She spent her days implementing new programs at Torres Industries, where her role had expanded to include community outreach and business development with Latino-owned companies. She spent her evenings house hunting with Gabriel and Isabella, looking at homes that would suit their blended family. What about this one? Isabella asked, pulling up a listing on her laptop. They were sitting in Rosa's living room on a Saturday morning, reviewing potential houses. Rosa looked at the photos of a 4-bedroom house with a large kitchen, a home office, and a backyard perfect for entertaining. It's beautiful, but isn't it too much? Gabriel shook his head. Rosa, you need to stop thinking like someone who's worried about deserving good things. You work hard, you contribute to our community, and you're building a successful career. You deserve a beautiful home. Besides, Mom, Isabella added, if you're going to be hosting business dinners and community events, you need space for that. Rosa was still adjusting to the idea that her personal life and professional life would include social obligations she had never considered. As Gabriel's wife, she would be expected to participate in charity events, business functions, and community leadership activities. Are you worried about the social aspects of being married to me? Gabriel asked perceptively. Rosa considered the question honestly. A little. I've never been a corporate wife. I don't know how to make small talk at fundraisers or charm potential business partners at dinner parties. Gabriel took her hand. Rosa, you've been charming people and building relationships your entire career. You just called it different things. When you interview employees and make them feel heard, that's relationship building. When you present program proposals to the board and get them approved, that's influencing people. When you help Spanish-speaking clients feel welcome at our company, that's hospitality. Isabella nodded enthusiastically. Mom, you're already doing all the things that corporate wives do. You're just doing them because they're part of your job and because you care about people. Rosa felt some of her anxiety ease. When you put it that way, it doesn't sound so intimidating. Plus, Gabriel added with a smile, I'll be right there with you, probably having anxiety attacks and reverting to Spanish whenever things get stressful. Rosa laughed. We'll be quite a pair. We already are quite a pair, Gabriel pointed out. And we work. The house they eventually chose was the one Isabella had found online, a 5-bedroom colonial with a gourmet kitchen, a library that Gabriel could use as a home office, and enough space to host the dinner parties and community events that would be part of their new life together. It feels like home already, Rosa said as they walked through the empty rooms during their final walkthrough. That's because home isn't about the house, Gabriel replied. It's about the people you share it with. Isabella ran her hands along the kitchen counter. I can't wait to learn to cook in this kitchen. Mom, will you teach me to make Dad's favorite dishes? Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. Isabella rarely mentioned her father directly, but when she did, it was always with love and the understanding that Carlos would have wanted them to be happy. Of course, Mija. He would love knowing that his recipes are being passed down. Gabriel put his arms around both of them. I hope you know that I would never try to replace your father, Isabella. But I want you to know that I love you like you're my own daughter. Isabella hugged him tightly. I know. And I love you too. Dad would approve of you. You make Mom happy and you treat her like she's amazing. That's because she is amazing, Gabriel said, kissing the top of Rosa's head. As they drove home from the house, Rosa reflected on how much her life had changed in less than a year. She had gone from working night shifts as a janitor to being engaged to a CEO, from worrying about Isabella's college costs to house shopping in upscale neighborhoods, from feeling invisible to being featured in business magazines. But the most important change wasn't external. The most important change was internal. She now saw herself as someone deserving of love, respect, and success. She no longer apologized for taking up space or felt grateful just to be tolerated. She knew her worth and she expected others to recognize it too. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. I'm thinking about that night in the lobby when I first met you, Rosa said. Did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Gabriel considered the question. Honestly? No. I was just a scared man having a panic attack, grateful that someone understood what I was saying. But Rosa, looking back, I think maybe we were both ready for our lives to change. Maybe we were both waiting for someone who would really see us. Rosa squeezed his hand. Maybe we were both waiting for someone who would understand that being bilingual isn't a weakness, that having anxiety doesn't make you incompetent, that working as a janitor doesn't mean you're not intelligent. Maybe we were both waiting for someone who would love all our parts instead of asking us to hide the complicated ones, Gabriel added. Isabella, who had been listening from the back seat, smiled. Maybe you were both just waiting for the right person to come along and remind you how amazing you already were. Rosa Martinez was ready for her new beginning. She was ready to be Gabriel's wife, Isabella's mother, and a leader in her community. She was ready to use her voice, her skills, and her platform to make a difference in other people's lives. Most importantly, she was ready to stop being surprised by her own success and start expecting it. The invisible janitor was gone forever. In her place was a woman who knew exactly how much she was worth. 6 months later, on a perfect Saturday morning in May, Rosa stood in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the elegant hotel where she and Gabriel would be married in 2 hours. The wedding dress Isabella had helped her choose was simple but stunning ivory silk with delicate beading that caught the light as she moved. You look beautiful, Mom, Isabella said, adjusting Rosa's veil. At 17, Isabella had grown into a poised young woman who would be starting university in the fall. Dad would be so proud. Rosa felt tears threaten and blinked them back carefully. I hope so, Mija. I hope he knows how happy I am. Isabella took her mother's hands. Mom, I need to tell you something important. Rosa turned to face her daughter fully. What is it? I'm not sad that you're getting married again. I'm not worried that Gabriel is trying to replace Dad. I'm just grateful that you found someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. Rosa hugged Isabella tightly, careful not to wrinkle either of their dresses. "You are the wisest person I know." A knock on the door interrupted them. "Rosa? It's Diana." Diana Foster entered with Jennifer Walsh and Carmen Rodriguez, the journalist who had become a friend over the past year. They had volunteered to serve as Rosa's bridesmaids, a gesture that had touched Rosa deeply. "The photographer wants a few more pictures," Jennifer said. "And Gabriel sent this." She handed Rosa a small envelope with her name written in Gabriel's careful handwriting. Inside was a note in Spanish. "Mi amor, en una hora más seremos marido y mujer. No puedo esperar a comenzar esta nueva vida contigo. Te amo con todo mi corazón. Gabriel. My love, in one more hour we will be husband and wife. I can't wait to begin this new life with you. I love you with all my heart." Rosa smiled, touched that Gabriel had written to her in the language of his heart. "What does it say?" Diana asked curiously. Rosa translated the note, and all four women sighed romantically. "He's pretty perfect, isn't he?" Carmen observed. "He's perfect for me," Rosa replied. "Which is all that matters." Downstairs in the hotel's garden, guests were taking their seats for the ceremony. Rosa had been amazed by how many people had become part of her life over the past year. Torres Industries employees, members of the Latino business community, Isabella's teachers and neighbors from both her old apartment building and their new neighborhood had all come to celebrate. Gabriel stood at the altar with his best man Richardson, who had become a genuine friend over the past months. Gabriel looked handsome in his charcoal gray suit, but Rosa could see even from the back of the garden that he was nervous. The string quartet began playing, and Isabella walked down the aisle first, radiant in her soft pink bridesmaid dress. She winked at Gabriel as she took her place, making him smile. Then the music changed to the wedding march, and Rosa began her walk down the aisle. She had chosen to walk alone, a decision that felt right for a woman who had made her own way for so many years. But as she reached the halfway point, Gabriel stepped forward from the altar and extended his hand to her. "I couldn't wait," he said softly as she took his arm. "Neither could I," Rosa whispered back. The ceremony was conducted in both English and Spanish, honoring both of their cultures and making sure that all their guests could fully participate. When they reached the vows they had written themselves, Gabriel spoke first. "Rosa, the night we met, you saved my life by understanding what I was trying to say when no one else could. But you've done so much more than that. You've taught me that my anxiety doesn't make me weak, that my bilingual identity is a strength, and that vulnerability can be the foundation of genuine connection." Gabriel's voice wavered slightly with emotion. "You've shown me that love isn't about finding someone who completes you, it's about finding someone who sees you completely and loves all of what they see." Rosa wiped tears from her eyes before beginning her own vows. "Gabriel, when I met you, I had been invisible for so long that I had started to believe I didn't matter. You didn't just see me, you valued my mind, my experience, and my perspectives. You gave me back my sense of worth and purpose." Rosa looked out at Isabella, then back at Gabriel. "But more than that, you showed me that it's possible to build a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding. You've never asked me to be smaller or quieter or different. You've simply loved me exactly as I am." The officiant invited them to exchange rings. Gabriel's hands were shaking slightly as he slipped the wedding band onto Rosa's finger. "With this ring, I promise to listen to you in whatever language you need to speak," he said, deviating from the traditional words. Rosa smiled through her tears as she placed Gabriel's ring on his finger. "With this ring, I promise to understand you in whatever way you need to be understood. By the power vested in me by the state of California," the officiant announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Gabriel, you may kiss your bride." Gabriel cupped Rosa's face in his hands and kissed her softly, while their guests erupted in cheers and applause. Isabella was crying happy tears in the front row, and even Peterson, who had eventually come around to fully supporting Rosa's role in the company, was wiping his eyes. The reception was held in the hotel's ballroom, decorated with white roses and soft lighting that made everything feel magical. Rosa and Gabriel's first dance was to a Spanish love song that Gabriel's grandmother had sung to him as a child, translated into a waltz arrangement. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Torres?" Gabriel asked as they swayed together. "Like the luckiest woman in the world," Rosa replied. "And you, Mr. Torres?" "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." During dinner, Isabella stood up to give a toast that had everyone in tears. "I want to thank Gabriel for loving my mother the way my father would have wanted her to be loved," Isabella said. "For seeing her intelligence when others only saw her uniform. For valuing her opinions when others dismissed her voice. For understanding that marrying her meant gaining a family, not just a wife. Isabella raised her glass. To Rosa and Gabriel, may your love always speak every language your hearts need. Later in the evening, as Rosa and Gabriel mingled with their guests, Carmen Rodriguez approached them with her photographer. "One more photo for the follow-up article?" she asked. "Our readers are going to want to see the fairy tale ending to your story." As they posed together, Rosa reflected on how much her life had changed since that first interview. She was no longer just the janitor who had been promoted. She was now recognized as a business leader in her own right, serving on the boards of 2 Latino community organizations and frequently invited to speak at conferences about diversity and inclusion. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "I'm thinking that this isn't really an ending," Rosa said. "It's another beginning. We have so much we still want to accomplish together." Gabriel smiled and pulled her closer. "What kind of accomplishments are you thinking about?" "Well, there's the expansion of the mentorship program to other companies. The scholarship fund we talked about starting for first-generation college students. Maybe even writing a book about our experience to inspire other people who feel invisible in their workplaces." "And personally?" Gabriel asked with a mischievous smile. Rosa blushed slightly. "Well, Isabella will be leaving for college in a few months. We'll have that big house mostly to ourselves. We might want to think about filling some of those empty bedrooms." Gabriel's eyes lit up. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that at 43, I might not be too old to give Isabella a little brother or sister. If you're interested in expanding our family." Gabriel spun Rosa around right there on the dance floor, making her laugh with delight. "Rosa Torres, you never stop amazing me." "Rosa Torres," she repeated, testing out her new name. "I like the sound of that." As the evening wound down, Rosa found herself standing on the hotel's terrace with Isabella, looking out at the city lights. "Are you ready for this, Mom?" Isabella asked. "Marriage, a new house, maybe a baby brother or sister?" Rosa put her arm around her daughter. "A year ago I would have said it was too much, too fast. But now, I feel ready for anything. I feel like I can handle whatever challenges come our way." "That's because you're not facing them alone anymore," Isabella pointed out. "You have Gabriel, you have me, you have friends and colleagues who respect you. You're not invisible anymore, Mom. You're the opposite of invisible." Rosa thought about this. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "I'm not invisible to myself anymore either. For so many years, I saw myself the way other people saw me, as someone whose only value was her willingness to work hard. Now I see myself the way Gabriel sees me, the way you see me, the way I should have seen myself all along." Isabella hugged her mother tightly. "Dad would be so proud of who you've become." "I think he would," Rosa agreed. "But more importantly, I'm proud of who I've become." Gabriel appeared on the terrace, having finished saying goodbye to the last of their guests. "Are my 2 favorite women ready to go home?" "Home," Rosa repeated. "To our home." "Our home," Gabriel confirmed, taking her hand. As they drove through the city toward their new house, their first night as a married couple in the home they had chosen together, Rosa reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 18 months ago, she had been Rosa Martinez, night janitor, invisible and overlooked, worried about her daughter's future and resigned to a life of quiet survival. Tonight, she was Rosa Torres, business executive, community leader, beloved wife, and proud mother. But the transformation hadn't been about changing who she was fundamentally. It had been about finally being seen for who she had always been: intelligent, capable, compassionate, and deserving of love and respect. Gabriel pulled into their driveway and turned off the car. "We're home, Mrs. Torres." Rosa looked at the house where they would build their life together, where they would raise whatever children might come, where they would host dinner parties and community events, where they would grow old together speaking whatever languages their hearts needed. "We're home," she agreed. As they walked up the front steps together, Rosa thought about all the people who had contributed to this moment. Isabella, whose love and faith had sustained her through the hardest years. Carlos, whose memory had given her strength and whose dreams for their daughter had kept her moving forward. Gabriel, who had seen her worth when she had forgotten it herself. The employees at Torres Industries who had trusted her with their stories and concerns. Even Peterson, whose skepticism had pushed her to prove herself more thoroughly. All of them had played a role in bringing her to this place where she could finally say with complete confidence, Rosa Torres was exactly where she belonged. Gabriel unlocked the front door and swept Rosa into his arms, carrying her over the threshold as she laughed with joy. "Welcome home, my love," he said, setting her down gently in their foyer. "Welcome home," Rosa replied, reaching up to kiss her husband. Outside, the city continued its busy life, full of people working night shifts and day shifts, People feeling invisible and people feeling seen, people struggling to survive and people beginning to thrive. But inside their home, Rosa and Gabriel Torres were writing the next chapter of a love story that had begun with a moment of crisis and bloomed into a lifetime of understanding. Rosa Martinez had started as a woman mopping floors who spoke the language of compassion when it was needed most. Rosa Torres would continue as a woman building bridges between cultures, creating opportunities for others, and proving every day that everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. Love, as it turned out, really did speak all languages. And Rosa Torres was fluent in every one of them.